Well, we're going to take this opportunity to just indulge ourselves a little bit with some of our Derby memories, our best and worst memories of the Greyhound Derby. Certainly for you two down the end, I'm guessing they're going to come from punting perspectives. But Lofty, what was your worst moment?
Worst, probably many moons ago, back in a very fast dog with Charlie Lister's called Ningbo Jack for the Derby. It was in the days when you couldn't always get 6 places at the start. I think I might not have backed him at the very start. I might have backed him after the first round. Anyway, he gets through to the final. We literally came through the bars in the semi-final, and I think it was the second favourite in the final. I was on him at, I think it was 33-1. Anyway, cut a long story short, if he doesn't lead, Derby Raw, final night, it's all going to go wrong. He's going to miss the break, he's going to finish last. The sponsors at the time put up prices, dog to finish last, so of course I'm thinking on 4 places. I'm going to have a little bet on the dog to finish last. Obviously, the rest is history where he finished. I haven't got to tell you where he finished. It's as simple as that. He missed the break and there was trouble, and I thought, well, someone's got to pick him up on the running, surely. And he was sort of 4th. And I was at Walthamstow actually working with Ben that night. It's when Ben first started betting there. And I was thinking, oh, he's not got picked up, and he's finished 5th. So that's pretty my hard luck story beyond anything else. It wasn't really anything sort of bad for perspective, but just for how much bad luck and a bad beat you can get, that was probably the one.
And to you, Phil?
I could rattle off loads of anti-post bets that have hit the dust in sort of dramatic style. I think one dog I backed one year was called Pike Alert, which is a northern trained dog, and he made the final. We needed to, and I think he went off joint favourite, and he unfortunately picked up an injury in the final and finished 5th when we needed first 4 for the money. Loads, I think Ballymac Russo was a dog I backed one year, Matt Dartnell. Thought I was going to beat the Derby win. Probably the most unlucky bet I've ever had. There are lots of people out there will be Holden Spy. I backed him the year he was in the competition flying at 100-1. Loads of people were similar bets, and I remember saying to somebody, the only way this dog's going to get knocked out of this competition is to be put on the floor. He got put on the floor in the semis, was tailed off, and he got beaten neck for 3rd place, I think it was, to qualify for the final. So yeah, and Aero Nemesis is another one. I backed to a Mark say so when he had him one year for the Derby, and he won every round, emptied in the semi-final when leading, and just missed out the final. I think he went quickest on Derby final night. So loads of them. But as a bookmaker, my family obviously stood at Wimbledon for years when the Derby was there. We got absolutely filled in the year Slippy Blue won the Derby for Ken Lindsell, and Paul Young was involved. 1990, I think Drew's Jono was in the final, who was had royal connections, and 14s into 8s on the night. And you imagine the Derby final night, how much money that takes in the days when you couldn't move in the stadium, it was so packed. And even worse, probably in 1986, if you indulge me with this one, it was on the Derby final card. Skirlow Champ was running in the last race, I think it was, in a marathon. He was silly odds on, so we bet without the favourite. And there was a local bitch called Covenham Lass, who was a stayer, and she was 33s to win the race, and I think the first price went up was 8-1 without, and all the locals just wanted to be on her. Everyone backed her, and it was the race. I think you can find it somewhere, maybe on YouTube, where it looks like Skirlow Champ stops chasing or goes lame. He's tailed off. He absolutely flies in the end. He gets beaten in a photo. Covenant Lass actually won the race. So yeah, it was. We done our money betting with in the main ring and without in the silver ring, so to speak. So yeah. They probably stick out for me.
What's your worst time in the Derby, Patrick?
Well, there's probably about 2. One of them was January Tiger. That's where Mark just took over from Linda. He got to the semi-finals, absolutely adored the dog. He was a white and black white running dog, and he got put on the floor at the first bend, and that was absolutely gutting. And he won the consolation, and he went on to win the Grand Prix at Walthamstow. And then the other one was when Blonde Snapper started off. I saw him running at Rumford in a maiden, and I was so impressed with him. And we bet him at 200 to 150, 100 to 80, 66. My last bet was 50s. He's 16 to 1 favourite to win it, and he got knocked out in the first round. I was absolutely gutted. And yeah, that was.
Oh, did come back and win it the next year, didn't you?
Never had a pound on it.
Yeah, I was on it the same year as you. Yeah.
I think my worst moment is not from a punting point of view. It was when Premier Fantasy broke down in the Derby. I've never known an atmosphere at stadium go from so high and such excitement about a competition to just dead. I mean, I think you were probably there, Phil. It was.
I was stood in the middle of the betting ring, and we were all watching the dogs into the first bend, and everyone stayed looking at the first bend, and the rest of the race was being panned out down the far side as everyone realised that an absolute superstar of the sport was injured, and it was very harsh. There was another one like that, a greyhound that Pat will remember very well, that myself and Paul Brown at Racing Post, we were very sure we got 100 to 1 about Iron Vito to win the Derby. Iron Storm, sorry, and he went off favourite for the competition, went out in the first round as well.
He broke his hook.
Yeah, terrible shame, terrible shame.
Another
hot breaking story again, it's myself. We got touted a dog called Cool Performance, which was a fast dog, and I then joined Patsy Byrne for the Derby at the time. Clocked something like 15:30 first look in a sprint, and then broke his hock the second time in a sprint. We won at 33. Of course, come out the following year, recovered, and then went to win the Irish Derby, which was that race with late show, wasn't it? Which was absolutely one of the best finals ever, I think, at Shelbourne. But another hard luck story to wrap. There's plenty of them, Julie.
Oh well, let's talk about some happier memories. What's been your best moment? Would it be kind of ready?
Yeah, definitely 100%. Yeah, never had a pound on him, but it don't matter. You know what I mean? That was absolutely amazing.
And you had a really special connection with that dog as well, didn't you?
Yeah, I think we all did, you know what I mean? Because it was Del Boy, and he was, you know, the mother was at Marks, and she was bred by Brenda and Kean in Ireland, and then she come back. They come to us as puppies. We took him for an A5 race at Coventry, and he got beat. And that was in October, and in May he won the Derby.
Yeah.
So, and he finished second in the Puppy Derby at Monmouth Green. Beaten by Bandicate to Pokey one the year later, but he was a phenomenal greyhound.
Lovely dog in retirement as well. Phil, your best memory?
Loads of them, most of them based around Wimbledon. I mean, saw some incredible greyhounds winning the Derby there. Some picture was on the first bend the night he flew past around the outside there. Awesome. Punting wise, my best ever success was Westmead Hawk the first year he won the Greyhound Derby, and I can't take full credit for it. It was Peter Meldrum who was our price was expert at the time, a tremendous judge. He marked my card and told me this dog is special. And I think I got something like 66 to 1 first year, which was brilliant. And just general highs, doing obviously Racing Post work and interviewing people, doing a piece with Bruno Berwick before Salah Dodger won the Derby, going out to see him, and then going back after he'd won the Derby. That was incredible because he genuinely believed he was going to win that final. And he told me all the reasons why. I wrote it in the paper. I still didn't bet him. He won on the night. But it was one of those rags to riches stories that, as Pat says, trainers all dream winning the Derby, and that gave everybody so much hope that you don't have to be a trainer with a top kennel. It's a dog that started off in A5 at Romford. They paid £2,000 for him, Bruno and Ron Mills, and went on to win the Greyhound Derby.
Yeah, I think having Ron Mills in your camp is definitely a big advantage, isn't it?
It's a big advantage.
For you, Lofty?
Well, probably, punting memories. I did bet a few winners back when I at Wimbledon when I had plenty of hair. Ringer Hustle springs to mind as one of the ones, and Tom's the best. I think I backed Rapid Ranger the first time he won, not the second time. But I think really you've got to look at the Rotors Wildcat. I backed him, and myself and Dave Clark both backed him. I know, obviously I had dogs with Kevin, so I knew how much Kevin thought of the dog when he was a pup running around Swindon. And I bet him a bit like Patrick, 80, 66, 50, 40 to win the Derby in the first year as a toaster, and he stumbled at the trap. He drew trap 4, much to Kevin and Donna's chagrin, which I drew out the hat in the second or third round, completely missed the break. Showed ridiculous speed to get to the front. I think Claw and Paddy was in the race and just fell in a heap and went out. Did back in the following year when he won again, but obviously that was the time with Kevin when his dogs went missing, and it was a little bit bittersweet for Kevin because he couldn't really celebrate it properly because he had the dogs back. But you only had to see what it meant to them, and you saw the video of Kevin stood in the paddock room there, the weighing room there at Toaster, Claw was a cucumber watching the race on the video, and it meant so much to them. And they say they're two of the nicest people in racing, with Kevin and John and all the Hutton camp there. So that was great to see them finally get the Derby at Toaster.
Yeah, I'm going to be a bit of a cop-out with this one. My greatest memories, there's many of them, but it sort of revolves around the emotion of the Derby, if you like. So obviously Westmead Hawk was a brilliant animal to work with in terms of producing TV. That was fantastic times. I loved it when Lively Mover came over with Gabor Tensil. But it's interviews like when I interviewed Mark Currell after Blonde Snapper won, and he could hardly talk because he was so emotional. It's the emotion of the Derby. And you mentioned Rotors Wildcat winning, of course, that kennel going through such a difficult time at the time. And another moment would be when I interviewed Seamus Cahill after he won the Greyhound Derby on the podium, having recently lost his daughter, and a rainbow suddenly appeared above us, and the emotion is just, I can't explain it, and I've never got it from any other sport. So it's a bit of a cop-out, but I'm going to just sort of generally say the emotion of winning the Derby. often have to hold back the tears. Might be with you this year, Patrick, you never know. But yeah, let's see what happens this year. Many, many stories to unfold over the coming weeks.